Tell me how this ethics card plays into Flint.
Well, when given a choice, the way I see it, a lot of the people involved in Flint who were holding the power to make decisions, they chose what to do. They chose what was easy. And I think it says even in the bottom there that I took up the case of the DC lead and water crisis, and I said the DC Water and Sewer Authority, on realizing that the disinfectant change is causing lead poison, colluded with all the other agencies to cover it up because it was easy. It was easier for them to cover it up than to accept that they had made a mistake. And it's the same thing with MDEQ. In that regard, both the DC lead and drinking water crisis and the Flint water crisis are very, very similar. In the sense that when they had a choice, MDEQ, the city of Flint, the governor's office, I'm not sure yet who's involved, but there is a sense that all these people have to be involved for such a big decision to take place. So yeah, instead of resolving the issue, they cared about their image, and they chose to attack us. They chose to attack Dr. Monahan and Atisha just because it was easy. It was easier to do that all day than to help the people in Flint.
You guys are pretty brutal with your report card on MDEQ, giving them 70% blame.
Yes,
and giving emergency management and giving the governor's office 10% blame.
Yeah.
Was there any discussion in terms of that number is too low for emergency management, that they allowed that culture to happen? And how did that report card come to be? Was there discussion within the team, and was there a consensus with all the team members that they all agreed to that? Like, did you have like a secret ballot and people like wrote down what they felt deserved the blame?
So what essentially happened was Sid came up based on his own experience. He came up with a graph which had these positive and negative bar charts, and he said, this is what I've come up with, and the numbers were very different from what they were in the final presentation. So if you want, I can share that with you and pull it up. So the story to this is Sid had come up with a bar chart. I think it was the day before, or no, it was the day of the presentation at Virginia Tech, and we were doing a rehearsal in the morning, and Sid had a bar chart that assigned blame based on his experience, based on Dr. Edwards' experience, and we all agreed in what he had over there. But the problem with that was that somehow the numbers and the percentage values that he came up with didn't add up to 100. So Dr. Edwards said that we are going to present to a room full of engineers and scientists, and they are not going to believe a word we say if the numbers on this chart don't add up to 100. So what he essentially did was take over from there, and he drew this table that you can see on your screen right now on a blackboard in that room. And he wrote all the major parties involved, their names, and then we finally came up with numbers based on consensus. So again, these were arbitrary percentage values out of personal experience of everyone. And all of the members on our team were in agreement that MDEQ should get most of the blame. I mean, the numbers themselves are finer details, but some of us did agree that the emergency manager should have had a more portion of the blame than just 10%.
Well, I was surprised to see that emergency managers has the same amount of blame associated as the EPA.
Yes.
Describe the EPA numbers, because you come in with a negative 50 and then you give it a positive 60 and then you get 10%. What does that mean?
So what I'm gonna do is explain the whole table to you so that it's easier to understand. MDEQ, they essentially had 100% of the blame, right? They were completely responsible for what happened in Flint in the way that it was their decision to not use corrosion control. It was their decision to let the children in Flint be poisoned while they keep attacking all of our work, all of the work that others were putting out against what they were trying to say. It was their decision in stalling any effort made to reconnect back to Detroit water. They were in this all along, so
Well,
they were responsible.
didn't they also fudge the numbers?
Yes, they did. They fudged the numbers. They threw samples out. Those are finer details. I mean, it's all a big. I mean, I look at it holistically, so I don't really go into the finer details, and I don't worry myself too much. I just take the gist of what happened. But here's the thing: if they had faked that they cared about the people in Flint, they would have gotten away with it. It would have taken us 10, 15, 20 years to prove that there was massive amounts of wrongdoing in Flint, and these agencies were directly involved. So the way this turned out to be beneficial for us was that, excuse me, sorry. It was beneficial for us because they were arrogant enough to not even bother to say that they care for the residents of Flint and they're actually working to help them. So it turned out that they were so bad that they were actually good in our cause. So that's why we took off 30% of the blame from them, just because of their arrogance and the stupidity of the comments they were making in the media. One of them is the very famous comment that the former spokesperson made, that this group specializes in finding lead in water, and it is not surprising that they pull the rabbit out of the hat wherever they go, even if they don't know where it's coming from. That was essentially what he tried to say.
And they still pull a rabbit out of the hat.
Yeah. So, so comments like these are what helped our cause, and that's why we took off 30% of the blame. Now the EPA. In the very beginning, in April, Mr. Miguel Del Toro, the heroic employee of EPA, wrote that memo and leaked it to Leanne Walters, and putting his career in jeopardy, and copying Dr. Edwards as well on that memo. And that essentially was the first indication of the fact that MDEQ, or the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality, was not using corrosion control. And Flint was the only city in the United States that did not even have a plan to control corrosion. And on top of it, they were running extremely corrosive water through their pipes. So it was that memo that brought everything out in the open, and that was a starting point for the investigations of a lot of groups involved. But then here's the thing: he takes down the EPA's blame to -50 just because of his heroic actions. But then his boss, who recently resigned, the region chief of EPA Region 5, his boss then made comments that then essentially asked him to stop talking to residents of Flint and to Dr. Edwards and to anyone about Flint, and no one was supposed to talk to him about Flint as well. She essentially got him off the Flint water crisis. And that's why they get 60% of the blame, because they tried to cover it up. They tried to delay the final memo. I mean, there was nothing to cover up because it was already out in the open. So they, I mean, they disputed everything that he said, everything that Mr. Del Toro said, and that's why they get 60% of the blame. So -50 plus 60, the net is that they have 10% of the blame.
So the -50 is for one individual, and that's Miguel de Toro.
Yes, but he is still affiliated with the EPA, so it goes to the EPA.
I have a quick question because I'm about to jump off the call very soon. Okay, so I see you have the emergency managers here, and you have the City of Flint Health Department. I guess also with ethics, right,
Yes.
comes into play leadership, because you cannot be a servant leader or even try and have transformative leadership, which should always come from the top down, without ethics. So when we're looking at the top down, we're looking at the governor, we're looking at the emergency managers. And it's obvious that once they did know, even though despite the actions of the MDEQ and the EPA, they did not immediately take action, because it took them, even if a best guesstimate, another 8 months in order to, remove Flint from the the Flint water system, and then another, if I have it correct, couple months to acknowledge any type of, I guess you say, wrongdoing in the whole incident about the Flint water system, and also the toxic water levels. So looking at it from a servant leadership or transformable leadership basis, and that should have ethics included, I guess I'm a little bit confused on why it is that the emergency managers nor the governor don't have any more ethical blame on this matter.
So let's look at it this way. I mean, I'll not go into the finer details, but essentially what happened here was that MDEQ, or the scientists and engineers working for MDEQ, were the experts. Those were the people, the governor's office, the mayor of Flint, the former mayor of Flint, Dane Walling's office, the city administrator's office. Those were the people they contacted to to take advice on this issue. I mean, we were putting out our results, and we were saying that there is a serious lead in drinking water problem in Flint. I mean, you cannot blame the political appointees to trust the experts. So it boils down to the experts who decided that it was easier for them to not do their job and to attack us. I mean, even the former spokesperson, Brad Werfel, was being advised by the same scientists and engineers who were deeply involved in covering this all, in trying to cover it all up. I mean, thankfully it wasn't covered up, but yeah. So it is again the scientists and engineers who are working for the state who people don't trust anymore. But the government has no choice but to trust those people, because they are being paid to protect the public on the behalf of the government of Michigan. And
okay, one follow-up. Yeah. I have one follow-up question. Do you believe, based on your research and research with the Flint Water Study Group, that the emergency managers and the governor, who were the leaders, have, I know you said here, 10% net ethical responsibility for the emergency managers. Do you think the governor has any ethical responsibility?
Okay, so this is a completely personal opinion, not the opinion of the team. What I think personally is that it all becomes a case of should have, could have, in the way that once the governor found out, or they should have had the basic common sense to figure out that MDEQ wasn't telling them the truth, or the governor just didn't know. I mean, you never know how far up this went. I know that the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, got involved today. There was a news article about it. So it's their job to find out how high this went and who is responsible. But at this point, 10% blame goes to the government, the City of Flint, Michigan Health Department together.
Okay, I get you.
What is the breakdown of that 10%? I can't really say, and I don't think anyone on our team can.
How about your personal opinion in terms of the breakdown of that group?
I did think,
City of Flint,
I did
governor.
think that MDEQ should have had 60% of the blame, and emergency managers get 20% of the blame, because it was their decision to. I mean, they were recommended by the MDEQ, yes, but the emergency manager was the final authority, and he was the one who signed the document that made the city of Flint switch from Detroit water to the Flint River water. Also, on top of it, before the last emergency manager left, he signed an order saying that all of his previous orders cannot be overruled by the city of Flint. I don't know what the details are on those, but he went to that extent to make sure that the city of Flint could not take the reins of this issue uh, with them. I mean, they didn't have the power at all. The city of Flint was helpless in a way.
So,